Right, so we're going straight back in because actually we didn't stop talking.
It was so interesting. So you talked about like you sometimes have the the couple that comes in and is nice with each other, and they even show respectful, and it's rolling smoothly.
They enjoy each other.
And my take on that is understanding for myself to actually it's a bit of karma, if you will, to foresee that the session will be like that. And that always helps me if I can envision and put myself in that, not too nice, but just respectful, for example. And I want to be seen and go into this in a respectful way. And I want to be able to also catch a moment where it's possible to make a pun, a joke, a witty comment or something, and lighten the air.
Yes, I mean, obviously in mediation we keep humor to a minimum because it can be a really helpful tool to give that moment of levity, so people can just they just relax for a moment, and then they know we're going to do this again. But everyone feels a little bit better about life and each other. But sometimes it's really unexpected. I had these people, and it was very conflictual. The other person was always wrong, and we were talking about a child who was resisting access with one of the parents, and the other parent said, well, I'm not going to force them, which is often what we hear. I'm not going to force my child to do anything. And this was a 7-year-old. And I just said, okay, but you know, if your child doesn't want to go to the dentist or school, what do you do with that? And they both started laughing. And this was very unexpected because they had been sniping at each other across the table. And I'm thinking, I don't know why we're all laughing. And then they said, oh yeah, sorry, you don't know, but our child has been banned from the dentist because they bit. So actually, child's kind of self-selected, no dentistry. I don't think they're thinking these baby teeth, whatever.
I didn't know that was an option. That would have been, I couldn't have saved.
Well, it's pretty cool. But yes, it was funny. But yes, humor can be amazing if you can. If everyone feels part of it. But I mean, it's such a connecting thing, though, humor, isn't it? It really.
For me, it is. I love stand-up comedy. I love things that are present moment and just observations, what's going on, because life is actually funny. It's not something where you just observations and being. And for me, integrating humor is a way of stepping out and looking like diffusion. In my
perspective.
Call it diffusion. Well, we're running around like this. We're having this target in mind, and we're doing this. And now we're like, okay, do you see yourself doing this? And we're just taking a step back. And
I think but I guess also it's really human. Although I have to say, I think dogs have a sense of humor, but humans kind of a very human.
Yes, it is. It is something where we can use our minds to create something that hopefully will yield to joy, maybe happiness, pleasure, just fun.
So this episode, I really wanted to kind of try and focus in on what are some of the ways that you might work with a separating couple, and what are some of the things that people can maybe do. The reason I first got to know about Sebastian is, and this is many years ago, before I met him actually, I was in a mediation and one of the clients was working with Sebastian, and I was telling him this story earlier this morning, and it was one of those mediations. It was, I think, the first mediation I'd done as a co-mediation, and it was a very emotional case. So relatively young couple, they had a small child, mum felt very disengaged, felt she hadn't been emotionally supported, and was looking to relocate quite far away with the child. And dad had no idea why this was happening, but was desperate to try and keep the relationship together, and actually started working with Sebastian and said, can we come back in 2 months? Can I work with Sebastian and come back in 2 months? And we were just like, oh God, is this going to hold together for 2 months? He came back, and he was a middle-aged man and from a Western country. And I think he just said, look, this 2 months has changed how I think about things, that I never really understood that when you said to me, oh, I need some support, that working in a good job, not sleeping around, coming home on time after the office, that's not what you meant. What you actually meant was emotionally support me, emotionally connect with me, make a cup of tea, sit down with me, just be. And now I want to do that because now I actually understand what you're talking. You just didn't have the language or the understanding.
Right.
And they decided to try and reconcile. So still uphill work, but they decided it was worth giving it a go because actually he hadn't had the language. And so that's how I got to know about Sebastian, which is obviously an amazing introduction to somebody's work, to think that you can give someone that language.
Yeah, I think what happened there was that, look, when I work with male individuals, that's a bit of a thing that comes up very often. That men define themselves about what they offer, how they provide, what they provide, and oftentimes are also giving themselves to a job and to a career, right? And then are feeling exhausted and not seeing that when I give everything in the job and now I'm going home, and at home I need to perform again in some way, shape or form, right? And haven't I done enough, or isn't that seen, and now it's complicated, and there's a bit of that maybe pride, but also a bit of that uncertainty and fear, that the anxiety about like not knowing how to do it differently, And I think the first step there for me was is always to uncover and to say, like, look, it's actually not that much work. You don't have to do it. It's going to be okay. You can handle that, and you can handle that. It's only very, very different from how you approach and how you attack your day. It's not the same. It's not about like firing up, making decisions, solving problems, right? And being tough and going through a day in that way that you're used. You have to really switch gears, right?
Well, I guess, and also him just appreciating he already was enough. Because actually you have all of the skills that you need to do this. Because he wanted to be a good dad, he wanted to be a good husband. It just,
and I remember I watched in that early stages, one of my very early blog entries I have on my website is the minister Gangor on bonus points. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. So it's about he does like in an entertaining way, he does like couples therapy, but for an audience, right? And it's one of an audience. And he's like how to score bonus points with our partners. And the bonus points you score with a female partner, it's a bit stereotypical, is to tune in and to hone in attention and to listen and to drop in the occasional how did that make you feel, right? And there goes your your bonus points, right?
So that would be kind of the relationship bank in the John Gottman kind of world. You're putting credits into that bank account.
Lots of that.
But it is funny. But it's interesting how cultural it is. Like he just said, look, I just culturally, this is not what I was taught as a child or brought up as a boy, or this is not what a good man does. And now I understand actually I can bring almost all of himself. It was like permission almost to be fully himself.
So lots of us have had absent fathers, right? So that's a generation where there were a lot of this male role modeling, but also seeing the parents doing that work that was there. So the skill never built, right? And that can be a relief to hear that actually it's not much work and it's okay. We will get yes.
So I mean that's a beautiful story, and I have to say in the mediations I've done, that was my very first case. So reconciliation is not typical in a divorce mediation practice. That was my first case. Last year I had 3 that happened in 1 month, which was very odd for me because the first one came in and I don't have handouts because I'm not prepared for this. And they came in, there was a whole apology across the table, which was completely unexpected. And then I quickly prepared some handouts and the next 2 came in and then nothing. So I don't know, in the hundreds of people I have seen and worked with, I've had 4 that have led to a reconciliation. But and it's not like they left and they were like, oh, we're all good now. It was, we have a lot of work to do. But it's the willingness to do that.
That would be so anything else would be surprising. This is not Hollywood here, right? And we're
Sadly, no.
Life goes on after the film credits.
Chaos in the movie, that is the big question.
And it goes on at the end of the escalator, by the way, if someone has forgotten about that in Hong Kong.
At both ends.
Yes.
Or all the interim ends, I don't know. Often though, what I am working with is people who are separating.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what you would say to people who are separating about how counseling can help, or what are some of the things they could be trying to be aware of in themselves.
Yeah. So we're dealing with what how I tackle it is to acknowledge, first of all, and then to again raise awareness and see where we are. Is that a concept that's far out there, or is there already steps taken on the separation? Where are we? Are we already in mediation and coming to see you, or I'm coming to see you, Sebastian, and need help, or is along the line? Where is that on the timeline? Yeah. And then to see that there are several processes involved. One is the attachment process with the becoming ex or separating partner. One is that leads to all kinds of emotional processes, obviously, and one is the practical one. Yeah. Then there's a social process, right? Towards separating. What does it mean to social circles, to family,
which friends?
Yes, and what do we say? So the impact is then the communication. Are we clear on that? Are we aligned on that?
Yes.
So without going into these things. So, and what is important is that we probably need to find out which pace is good. When I work with individuals, it's like
it's their pace.
It's their pace, right? And we need to be there.
Yeah. And how do you work with? Because you also do couples. How do you work with couples where there may be different paces?
It's exactly that. Only that the complexity is then that we add on that I help to make the other ones aware, right? The partner's aware of, like, yes, you are there. Yes. And the partner is not there. Yes. And wouldn't it be beneficial to know about like where the partner is and what we want to cultivate going forward? And there will be, we talked about that already, there will be a relationship following the separation, right? In one way, shape, or form, or in many shapes or forms. And how do we want to not repeat the same patterns that led to the separation? Yeah. Or dissatisfaction,
so sort of like renegotiation of this new identity,
right? And then to deal with that in a respectful, mindful way of how to steer that. Yeah,
I mean, I think when people are co-parenting, that's often the one where there's the most tension, because often when I'm working with people, one of the reasons why they have decided to separate is they kind of realize through children their values are not aligned. They have very different beliefs about how things should happen. Yes. And the children, it's not the children cause it, but the children give this incredibly living example every day of we don't agree. Yeah. And then helping people to try and find a way to co-parent beyond is kind of a challenge, because their identities are also impacted by that.
That is a challenge. And when I work with couples, I make it very clear that's one of the few times where I'm over the years now much more confident, if you will, to make clear that we need to delineate responsibility, in particular for children. And we can't, as best we can, we can't bring any of that of the stuff that the resentment, the bitterness, the drama, and everything will have an effect on the children, and we can't let that happen.
Can I ask you to talk a little bit about that, about the impact of conflict on children? That's a 6-hour topic, but in a thumbnail sketch.
So look, I'm not a child psychologist, and I haven't studied or specialized in any way, shape, or form in that. However, we cannot underestimate how early children get the full blown effect of everything that goes on or goes pear-shaped in the marriage, and everything that is every single fight, every 3 a.m. Throwing items, verbally or literally, objects, every tension, every eye rolling
Yes.
will be noticed at a very early stage. I mean, it's like we know that trauma already emerges in the womb, right? You don't have to be born by then, and it's affecting how. And why is that? Because children are, and having their own autonomic nervous systems, the bodies are antennas for negativity, for resentment, for forces that are pulling, for all the ugliness, if there is any. And that is just a shame. And everyone needs to be adult enough and self-contained enough to see that, and to not, as best we can, to stay away from that, and to protect the children from being exposed.
I mean, it's something that as a mediator, we actually have a positive ethical duty to encourage parents to act in their children's best interests and make decisions in their children's best interests. But I often find people will say things to me like, oh, they don't even know this is going on. Like, they live in the house.
That's horrible.
They're not inanimate. They know, because guess what? You are the two most important people in their world. Like, this world comes from you.
And we know that it has an effect.
I mean, there's so much research. It's really but I think really difficult. And I often work with people who struggle to put aside the adult separation and just say, you know what, at the end of the day, I decided to have children with you. These are our children.
Right.
And we're going to be in each other's lives as co-parents. How do we find a path forward?
So thanks for saying that, Sara. You asked, like, on the individual level, I think when there is, so depending on how strongly you sense yourself, you feel yourself, you're affected by that emotionally. Are you leaving the state of a regulated state where you're open and able to listen and hear your partner and connect with people in general, but in this case with your partner, or are you leaving that space very often? And if that's the case, I would tend to say, look, you need to get professional help yourself individually, even though if you feel, if that's after an affair or whatever happened that led to that separation, even though you feel it's I shouldn't be here, but you have been in a car accident, and only because you were not the driver, you still have a concussion, you still have injuries, and you can make the choice and decision to heal, right? And to seek and to rehabilitate, to be able, or you can just keep on limping. But if that's the case, then the individual health is really the much more effective one, I would say.
And I think that's the interesting thing, because people, I think sometimes, I know they are aware of it, but I think it becomes sort of suppressed, which is they are experiencing a separation. Their children are experiencing the separation. And at a time when their children have the most need of them, they have the least emotional capacity. So it's just, it's kind of, it becomes this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy of like, I'm in trauma, I'm dealing with this, I'm not available for you. But you're actually also, the child, are also dealing with this. It's very, it is not easy.
It's heartbreaking.
No,
it's really heartbreaking, and there's damage, and it's really about being honest to ourselves, right, in that moment, and to say, we can't let that happen, and it infiltrates other areas of children, and it just we can't contain it.
Well, I remember working with someone who had teenage children, and the partner had an affair, and they were separating, and they said to me, oh, well, I haven't said anything to the children yet, but as soon as we file the papers for the divorce, I'm going to let them know exactly why this is happening. And the mediator, child best interest in me, was like, don't do that. But I was just like, can I just ask you why you haven't
seen from the perspective of, like, if you were like putting yourself back, you were 15, would you have wanted to know and have an honest conversation?
Because I keep being told, oh, they need the truth. I'm like, I don't know that they do. I think they need the freedom to be teenagers. But I just said, can I just ask you why you haven't told them yet? And they said, oh, because I've been protecting them. And I'm like, so why would you stop doing that?
And they
were like, we had a silence. But it was just like you're protecting them because you love them.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I might have gotten you wrong, Sarah. So having a conversation about there is something going on, because I would assume everybody knows there is tension. You can feel it, and keeping it a secret.
Not everybody. No, not everybody knows.
All right. Okay.
Yes. Sometimes this is revelatory.
All right.
Yes, I actually have. I mean, I've had some interesting feedback from people, and when people say to me, "My professional, whatever they are, said this," I'm always like, "Okay, well, if I hear the professional say that, or I see it in writing, then I will have confidence, because I know from experience people misinterpret. Sometimes they're unaware that they're doing it. Sometimes I think it's kind of I'm listening to what I want to listen to, and other times I'm thinking, this is just not true. This just doesn't sound real." But I've had several people say to me, "Oh no, my counselor, psychologist, whatever, therapist says the children need to know the truth, and I need to just be honest with them about why this divorce is happening." And I'm like, they are 7.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
No. Because you said teenage.
That was specific, because I've got people
depending on the age,
as young as 5 and 7 saying they need to know the truth about how the other parent.
Oh, sorry. No.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I misheard that. So, no. Fully agree. Yeah. Yes. Horrible. Can't let it happen. And you have the responsibility to protect and to find a way. But my point was, to be honest, about the separation and about that there will be changes. And I need to wait until
no, I know it's
until you move out, and then sorry, I'm laughing, but that would be horrible. You're right.
Yes.
And then confronting them then about things, because sometimes what I see is people want to deal with it themselves, often the male brain, right? Not reaching out to anyone. Let me just go through, and once the papers are done, and when I have something to say and something is decided, and I'm like, oh no, that would not be so good, because how, like, A, do you really think they don't see or hear anything? B,
you'll need a processing
you have
time
to keep that. It's very stressful to keep it all in. And C, I think it's not about telling yes or no, it's about how you communicate. And that's the part, right?
Well, I think it's also the message. So adult matters. Someone's had an affair, they did that is irrelevant.
Irrelevant, completely irrelevant.
But what is relevant is, mum and dad love you, you're going to see mum and dad, you're going to live here, you're going to go to school, there's all of that, absolutely.
Age appropriate.
Exactly. Developmentally appropriate for that child. I mean, often what we'll work on is a script, that we'll work on a script of either mum and dad are separating, it's no one's fault, we both love you, we're working on fixing everything and we will let you know, or we are separating, here are the answers, this is how life is going to look. But we work on doing that together. I have to say, I had somebody who was not emotional, did not express himself at all. The homework, they both had to go away and write a script that they thought they could both combine to use together. So they both did their homework, came back to the mediation. His script was so beautiful.
All right.
It was just like all of these, I think, very tender, loving things which he found difficult to verbalize. He could write. And then knowing he was going to read the words meant, I can say that, but it was it was really.
It comes back to different paces and different styles, right? So if you give me time and I can write it out and think about it, I feel confident, right? And then there's a lot. Everyone has a lot to say and a lot to share, right? So it's not that the withdrawing partner, the silent one, has a lot of observations usually.
Yes, a lot of observations. Yes, I call it editorial comment.
And then giving different channels and again being aware of these paces and styles, right? To tune in. I think
it's interesting. I actually have somebody who wrote a letter to their former partner that they wanted to present to them in the mediation because they wanted to say things to them about just almost acknowledging that things had been good. There was a connection there, and they were sad about the sadness.
I'm a very big fan of written notes or letters, because it enables us, or email for that matter, because it enables us to put it out, to put thought in it when we craft it. But also on the receiving end, you can have a bad day, you can read it. But you can read it again the next day, and maybe you have a better day, and you read it in a different light. How often have we done bad, right? So the interpretation is different, and whatever you read, it's all there. So sometimes we just stump in a conversation. We don't hear, we don't listen, right? We have heard it all before and blah, blah, blah. There you go.
Yeah.
And when you have the written note, you have really the opportunity to craft it in the way to express everything and whatever how you want to express it. And the other one, really, you make sure it's received in a way where you can.
Yes, the whole message can be delivered.
It can be delivered. Exactly.
Yeah, I guess even for ourselves, we can use journaling to help clarify for ourselves what the meaning is of what's happening around us. Kind of hoping that, I guess, typing is always the same as writing it. I feel like writing is better.
For me, writing is better, definitely.
Yes, but that could be
That's exactly. That's,
if I get my stone tablet out and I'm that feels good.
Yes. No, I can't get into it. Handwriting is good.
I agree. I think the physicality of it also helps. I think. I don't know. I'm sure there's research on that. Anyway, thank you, Sebastian, so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
I'm sure everybody would like to
really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
And stay tuned, because I think we're going to do Mental Health Month, actually. And I will see you in the next Map Remains.